I will now request Dr. Devendra Bhargava from IIT Roorkee to please come up and enlighten the students with his aura of knowledge. Let's welcome sir with a big round of applause.
Chief guest sir, Shri Thanvi sir, Chairman sir, Shri Shamaji, many other dignitaries on the dais as well as on the audience, and dear students. See, I also got educated in Jaipur and Jaipur. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to speak here, and I feel greatly indebted to Jen Sir for having invited me to this function over here this morning. And I'm really very happy and I was very pleased to see the entire campus because last night I arrived here, and I'm much impressed by this kind of institution in Jaipur. I find everything green, and when I saw the brochure, everything was green, ending with green and starting with green, and only our page this is blue, but it could have been green also. So I find that green is getting more and more greener, and it is getting more and more attention. And I was very much impressed by the speech of Sri Thanvi Sahib, and he used some words, and I'm sorry I'll be repeating his words. He used one very good terminology, that is appropriateness. You remember sometime back there used to be a fashion, rather there was a development that people started saying that appropriate technology is a real technology. So that's what we said about, and I'll also be talking a little bit about this appropriate technology. Unfortunately, a constraint has been put on me to speak only for 5 to 7 minutes. I thought I'll get a little, I deserve a little longer time. But anyway, let me see that if I can make my point within that much permissible time. I'll speak about a little bit about water because that's my area of specialization. And you must have heard those old times saying that everywhere water is there, but now you cannot have any water for drinking, you cannot have any water for taking a dip in, you cannot have any water for agricultural use, or everywhere there is a problem. Whenever you find that water is not useful to him. When the farmer uses water, he says that my crop does not flourish. When when you go for recreational uses, you find that you come out, if you take a dip, you come out with a heap of dirt on your head, and if you go for water, then nowhere you find that the water is wholesome. Wholesome is the word I use, that because that is the most important requirement we see in the water. And these days, even in these bottles which you get over here, and you know, recently there was a news in the paper that out of 10 bottles examined in Pune, 8 of them were found to be spurious. And still you have the fashion that whenever you go out, you like to prefer a water which is bottled. Anyway, today I will speak on a little bit about this, our problem of our poor farmers, and what havoc has been done by this kind of revolutions, which some people say that has been a green revolution, but in my opinion, because it was not appropriate, because it was not suited to our conditions, the entire thing resulted in a great flop. You must have heard that there was a revolution that be green, and the farmers were advised to use as many fertilizers as possible, but not as much as is required, and pesticides. Our farmers are not well educated. They are not technologists. They do not understand science. They do not understand anything. They were simply told that this is the fertilizer, this is the pesticide, and use them. They started using them indiscriminately. Because farmer is a bit greedy. He thought that if I kill all the insects, my crop will be so big. If I use too much of fertilizers, my Dashami mango will be so big in size. So he became greedy. He is greedy. So he started using these fertilizers and insecticides indiscriminately. What was the result? As much it has to be consumed was consumed, and the rest went out with the various water resources. And you see the situation today. All our water resources are contaminated with these insecticides, pesticides, and these fertilizers have created a problem of eutrophication. All our lakes have become eutrophied. Half the Dal Lake is dying. The rest of it will die in some times to come. Most of the land has been converted into marshland, and later on it will be reclaimed for reconstruction. So this is the problem of using these fertilizers because it was not applied appropriately. They were not told, there was no check on any one of them to use the optimum amount. So when they use too much of fertilizer, then it went into the waterways, and once the system goes in a waterways and eutrophication starts, it can never end. It will only result in the death of the lake, as had happened to part of the Dal Lake in Srinagar. Now this process is a little bit complex process. When a water is there in a lake, there is always organic material. Whenever there is organic material, bacteria will come into play, and initially the bacteria will use oxygen and they will be aerobic, they will not create any nutrients. But when the oxygen is depleted, they will turn anaerobic and they will create a lot of problems and a lot of foul smell, and you will see that the water is stale. This is what has started happening, and in this system what happens is that sunlight is there, carbon dioxide is there, so algae start growing in blooms, and when it start getting growing into blooms, then it consumes the nutrients in no time, and then the nutrients are finished and the algae start dying out. When it starts dying out, then it is no more floating and settles to the bottom and again becomes the organic material and again undergoes the same kind of thing, and when it goes the anaerobic cycle, again it releases nutrients. Now these nutrients again come back and they diffuse to the top, and this cycle goes on repeating, so never ending cycle. So once this process is started in a lake or in a stagnant water, nobody can stop it, and ultimately it will result in the death of the lake or pond. So this is actually what has happened, and all our water resources these days because of this particular green revolution have been spoiled, and not a single place is there where water is worth drinking, and you have to spend heavy amounts of money to make the water drinkable. What is happening with Bisleri bottles? 10 rupees you can drink this much of milk. Why drink water? So this is the time has come that you to drink water to sustain yourself, to get the right quantity of water. You will spend about 50 rupees per day per head only on the water. So this is just here. If you just imagine if the water has to be treated at the public scale, how much amount has to be spent. So this is the situation which has come, and in my opinion, as Hanviji also said, that we didn't apply the technology appropriately, and ultimately the result was that our no water resource is there. So my appeal is that whenever we plan things, we should look into the local situations, and based on the local situations, we should plan our strategies. Same thing happened about the Ganga action plan. We didn't keep any, in fact, for that matter, any plan for environmental control. We didn't keep regard of the local situation. I'll give you a very small example. I don't know how many of you might have visited Banaras. If you visit Banaras, you will find that Banaras is famous for very narrow streets. And some of these streets are so narrow that two fat people can hardly cross each other. So this kind of situation, when it exists and there is a huge density of population in those states, then where the wastewater will go? You can't construct a sewage system in those narrow lanes, and ultimately what will happen is that all this wastewater has to flow into the river directly. So you may have a very, very high level of sophistication in treatment of wastewater, but even then it is a report all over the country that in any city in India, not more than 50% of the wastewater is getting collected. So whether the 50% water you treat with the highest level of technology, what will happen? The remaining 50% will go to the rivers directly, and this is the Indian situation which nobody has kept any regard, and they simply keep on making noise that water rivers are not getting clean and all those things. This is what's happening. Then our Indian habits and all those things, I need not say about them. Our habits of hygienic habits, they are so different from others that the things cannot change. So ultimately, in my opinion, it is the appropriateness of the technology and keeping regard of the local situations, the habits of the people, the circumstances, the Indian situations. If you keep regard of those things, then only you can succeed. I have been writing at many platforms that Indian rivers would never get cleaned in the present context, with the present situation, and something drastic has to be done. But again, this pollution thing has also become political. To clean it or not to clean has become a matter of politics. You know, it's something like this, that suppose you employ a person to clean your house. If he cleans your house in such a way that for 1 year you don't need to meet him again, then that fellow will understand for 1 year I'll be out of job. So he will ensure that you need him every day. Thank you, and I'm very grateful to the organizers of this conference for giving me a opportunity to